Many of us have habits we want to break, and probably some habits other people want us to change. To make those adjustments, habits expert James Clear says we should think small.
And this is James Clear. He's the author of a New York Times bestseller, Atomic Habits. He's joining us now to explain how you can build good habits and break bad ones.
His newsletter has over 2 million subscribers. He's also a sought-after speaker at Fortune 500 companies, and his work is used by teams in the NFL, MLB, and the NBA.
I'm James Clear, and this is Masterclass. I want to start this journey on habits in an unexpected place. The world of competitive cycling, where every variable matters. And this story will show you how incremental moves and changes can make a big difference on improving your habits. You know, cycling is a competitive sport, and around 2003, 2004, the British cycling team found themselves in this interesting position, which is they were trying really hard. They were training hard. They had all kinds of, top tier resources and coaching, and their performance wasn't there. And around this time, they hired this new performance director, this coach by the name of Dave Brailsford. And so he had this concept, he had this idea that he called the aggregation of marginal gains. And the way that he described it was the 1% improvement in nearly everything that we do related to cycling. So they started with a bunch of small changes that you would expect a cycling team to focus on. Like they put slightly lighter tires on the bike, they designed a more ergonomic seat, they asked each rider to try different types of massage gels to see which one would lead to the best muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon to come in and teach the riders how to wash their hands to reduce the risk of catching a cold or getting the flu. They even asked each rider to try a dozen different types of pillows, see which one led to the best night's sleep for each person, and then they would have them bring that pillow on the road with them to hotels for the Tour de France and their major races. And so Brailsford said, look, if we can actually do this, right, if we can make all these little 1% improvements related to cycling, then I think we can win a Tour de France within 5 years. Now, he ended up being wrong. They won the Tour de France in 3 years, and then they repeated again the 4th year with a different rider. So this idea that 1% improvements are not just kind of nice to have, they're not just a bonus or a little bit extra, but actually can be the pathway to unlocking elite levels of success. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to do something radical. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to do something earth-shattering. It just means that you need to do the reasonable thing, the sustainable thing, the small thing, consistently over a broad span of time. In many ways, greatness is consistency, or maybe we should say consistency is its own form of greatness. And by showing up each day, even if it's in a very small way, you can often surprise yourself with the results that you can get over a year or 2 or 3. There are many reasons why habits matter. Habits can influence so many different areas of life. Almost every result you get is a lagging measure of the habits that precede them. So your physical fitness is a lagging measure of your training habits. Your bank account is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your productivity is a lagging measure of your prioritization habits. Even little stuff like the amount of clutter in your living room is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. And so often in life, what we want is for better outcomes to happen. What we want is to have better results. But it's kind of one of these ironic things. The results are not actually the thing that needs to change. It's like fix the inputs and the outputs will fix themselves. Adjust the habits that precede the results and you'll be carried naturally to a different destination. If you think about what you do, take it in the workplace, for example, there's almost no result that you get at work that's just a single instance and then you're done. It's the accumulation of many efforts, of many actions that you take that really delivers a better outcome. So if you can master your habits, it doesn't necessarily guarantee results, but it's hard to find something that puts you in a better position to get good results. For me, the idea that small changes could lead to bigger results actually sprouted from a horrible accident. An accident that changed the course of my life. So my sophomore year of high school, last day of the school year, I suffered this injury where I was hit in the face with a baseball bat. It was an accident. My classmate took a swing and the bat slipped out of his hands, kind of rotated like helicopter style through the air and struck me right between the eyes. I lost consciousness, took me out on a stretcher, went to the ambulance. On the way to the hospital, I lost the ability to breathe on my own. They started to intubate me, pump breaths in by hand. I had a couple seizures. It took about a month for my eye to recede back to its normal level. I couldn't drive a car for 9 months. My first physical therapy sessions, I was practicing basic motor patterns like walking in a straight line. All I wanted to do was get back on the baseball field. I was a high school baseball player. I was excited about it. Like, that's all I wanted to do was get back and play and be a normal kid again. But it was this time in my life when I had to start small. I wanted to fulfill my potential. So somehow I kind of weaseled my way onto this college squad 2 years later. Junior year, I was team captain, and then senior year, I ended up being academic All-American. I never ended up playing professionally, but I do think I was able to fulfill my potential. I was able to make the most of what I had. But we all have challenges that we face, and that was one of mine. And one day at a time, I improved my sleep habits, study habits, strength training habits to get better. And I was able to take this horrible accident and discover that small steps can make a big impact. There are these common narratives that we have about how habits are formed and how difficult it is to change your habits and that kind of thing. And one of the common stories that we tell ourselves is, well, maybe if you really wanted it, then you would do it. Maybe if you had more discipline or grit or willpower, persistence. And I don't want to totally dismiss that. Like, certainly discipline and grit and willpower are very important qualities in life. But I don't think that answer is quite right. I think many people, certainly someone watching this right now, genuinely does want to improve, genuinely does want to fulfill their potential, genuinely does want to perform at a high level. So what I always say is, look, if you're struggling to improve, the problem isn't you, the problem is your system. The problem is the approach that you're taking, the process that you have, and the way that you're trying to attack the problem. What we find is that there are actually many things that influence habits. Willpower is just one of many variables. Rather than asking myself, what could I do on my best day? What would it look like to have peak performance? Ask yourself, what could I stick to even on my worst day? So I think willpower will always play a factor in whether you show up each day and perform, but it's best to try to optimize the other factors so that you need the least amount of willpower possible to follow through on your habits. The San Antonio Spurs, very successful NBA basketball franchise. They've won 5 NBA championships at this point, and they have this quote hanging in their locker room, and it says something to the effect of, every time I feel like giving up, I think about the stonecutter. Takes his hammer and bangs on the rock 100 times without it splitting in two. And then at the 101st blow, it cracks. And I know that it wasn't the 101st that did it, but all the 100 that came before. And man, that quote from Jake Brees, that idea, that can apply to so many different things in life. It wasn't the last workout that made you fit, it was all the 100 that came before. If you can master the art of showing up, if you can continue to build this consistency, if you can keep hammering on the rock, then 2 months or 6 months or 2 years later, you have the result that you were trying to show up for. So the little mantra I like to keep in mind is, when dreaming or when making plans, think big, but when executing, think small. And that same mantra can also apply to this masterclass. This class is a good example. You can break it down. Just watch it one chapter at a time, 10 minutes a day for 10 days. And then take that idea, take the concepts from that chapter, and then go and apply them to the work that you're doing or the life that you're living. And by scaling it down, you make the class easier to digest, easier to apply, because you're not trying to do 10 different things at once, and hopefully easier to get the results that you're looking for. I think what I hope for you to get out of this class is a new mindset and approach. So just a different line of attack, a different way of thinking about habits that feels reasonable, that feels sustainable, that feels like, hey, this is something I can take and I can go ahead and apply it to my daily life and work. And I also want it to be very actionable. I want you to be able to watch these videos and to feel like I have something that I can apply right now. I have something that I can implement in my life and in my work. I have something that I can take away and get better results from. Coming up, these days, people are too focused on results and rarely focused on ways to get there. I'm going to give you one tool, and it's important. Set a system, not a goal.